Good afternoon. Today is the February 25th, 2021 Policy Management Committee meeting. I'm going to ask my colleagues to identify themselves, and we will have staff identify each of them as they begin their presentations. I'm Pat O'Neill. I'm chair of the committee.
Judy Daca, District 1.
Rebecca Smondrowski, District 2.
And Nick Asante, student member of the board.
So our first item is the informational summary of the December 10th Policy Management Committee meeting. Did anyone have any additions or corrections? If not, then they stand approved. So today is the exciting event of the discussion of the policy IDA school year calendar and a presentation to us of the draft calendar. So Ms. McGuire, I believe it's you.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. O'Neill. I appreciate that. And hello, we're happy to be here today to share, as you said, the first full discussion that the committee and the board will have regarding the instructional calendars for the upcoming school year, 2021 and 2022. Just to briefly recap, and then we'll bring up the slides in a moment. Certainly, the timeline for the development of the calendar is typically much earlier in the year. However, due to sort of the ongoing uncertainties and just other work that needed to be done regarding the current public health conditions in the current school year, the committee did recommend and the board approved a deferral of the typical timeline. And so that is why we're taking it up at this point in the spring. And as we will discuss at the end of our presentation today, we do have a proposed plan to bring to the committee in terms of how to move the calendar forward. While we will have a compressed time frame, because we know everyone's anxious to get the calendar moving, and we are as well. So we will have a compressed time frame, but we certainly know that we want to hit all of those important markers regarding community feedback and community engagement. And so we are working through those aspects as well. So with that, perhaps we will just dive right in. What we'd like to do today is really outline the various parameters and aspects of the calendar. We do have a couple of scenarios to show the committee. And then, of course, we can talk through any changes or questions or amendments or adjustments, rather, that the committee would be interested in at this stage before we start going through more of the review processes with the board and the public. Okay, so if we could go ahead and bring up the slides, please. Thank you, and we can go, thank you. So we do start with many of the same general parameters that we have every year. The state requires a minimum of 180 instructional days. The MCPS calendar plans for 182 instructional days. We do like to build in some extra time to be sure we have as much instruction as possible, and also to help us with any potential contingencies that come up related to inclement weather. Speaking of inclement weather, the state regulations, COMAR, does still require that we identify makeup days for inclement weather or other emergency closures. The state regulations require that we show that we the ability to make up instructional days within the school year, as well as to extend the school year. So you will see in these scenarios that we continue to represent both. Certainly, as folks have experienced this year, and as Dr. Smith and others have said, we do anticipate that virtual instruction will continue to give us the opportunity to hopefully maintain continuity of instruction more and to close schools less. But still, we do know that you never quite know. There are always contingencies and always emergencies that can take a number of different approaches. And so we want to be sure we have the ability to make up any days if we do, in the event that we do need to close school down. Next slide, please. And as we look at the state mandated closures in the upcoming school year, Labor Day does continue to fall a little bit late. It's on Monday, September 6th. And That is no longer, we still are not under the requirement that we start after Labor Day that we had been a few years ago. And so it is the board's discretion of when to start. We do, of course, close on Thanksgiving and Friday the day after. We close Christmas Eve through New Year's Day. I do have to point out to people that winter break is a little short if we go with the official observances because New Year's Day falls on a Saturday. The holiday is observed on the Friday, December 31st. And then, of course, we have a number of days in the spring: Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, the Friday and the Monday surrounding Easter, and Memorial Day. So you'll see all of those reflected in the scenarios as we go forward. Next slide, please. The board in recent years has also identified an educational and an operational interest to not conduct instruction on certain dates where student and staff attendance may be significantly impacted. Many of these align with certain observances or other days of importance where we do know that many in our community are not attending school. And the board has had many discussions around the impact of instruction on these days. So these are the days that we are identifying as potentially, again, being aligned with that interest that the board has identified. September 7th, which I just would point out is the day right after Labor Day. So when you see some scenarios, you'll notice that there are 2 days there: September 16th, November 4th, February 1st, and May 3rd. I also want to highlight, and this will become important when we discuss the innovative calendar, that the July 4th holiday will be observed on Monday, July 5th of 2021, this upcoming summer. And again, we need to keep that in mind for both our professional year-round 12-month calendar as well as our innovative school calendar. Next slide, please. So we are bringing before the board, the committee today, 3 calendar scenarios. Again, these are just starting points, and certainly any adjustments, and there are multiple scenarios that could be developed, but we wanted to bring these as a starting framework. The 3 scenarios that you're going to see today do reflect what has been the typical full-length spring break for MCPS. And we certainly over recent years have heard quite a bit of energy around the spring break and the importance of spring break to our staff and our students and our community at large. There is a possibility, because of how Easter falls and where the spring break options are, as well as the end of the quarter, there is a possibility of connecting an end of the quarter professional day to spring break also, which would make it extra long. So just sort of highlighting that that is one potential scenario that the board may want to think about. Next slide, please. One of the pieces that we really wanted to highlight, it relates to the early release days that we use for parent conferences. I'm sorry, those specific early release days. And as committee members are well aware, it has been a longstanding practice in the school system to align the early release days for parent conferences with Veterans Day. And typically we do a half day on Veterans Day and a half day either the day before or the day after. And that is often a benefit to our families who may either be working in the federal government and have that day off, or be as part of some organization that aligns with that federal holiday. There have been a number of advocates over recent years who have cited the experience of other jurisdictions and also just sort of a general interest in having those early release be aligned with Thanksgiving, with the week of Thanksgiving. And in this current school year, which we all know is certainly atypical in just about every way, there was an interest specifically in doing that because of having the need to have more uninterrupted weeks in the second marking period. So we took a flexible approach to conferences with our schools and our families, again, really in the context of virtual learning, where we were around the November timeframe, and really being responsive to both the instructional requests of the schools as well as again, the interests of many of our families. having tried it once, certainly we know that there is energy around that. And so you will see that we have some calendar scenarios that reflect some of that feedback that show the early release days for parent conferences on Monday and Tuesday. We certainly also have a scenario that shows it's still on the Veterans Day practice. And really, I think that's just a question that, there are pros and cons, of course, to both approaches. I think there are very valid reasons for both, and as well as very valid concerns around having 3 early release days in a row right before Thanksgiving. So again, just wanted to highlight this when we have spoken with advocates, and we did have a preliminary feedback discussion about some of these issues with a number of our community advocates. There definitely were voices on both sides of this one. So again, I'm sure we'll continue to hear that, but I did just want to represent that there is energy on both sides. So again, we wanted to reflect both in our scenarios. Next slide, please. So we can move straight into the scenarios and show what we're talking about. For each, we just have a little bit of a summary. You can see that if we start before Labor Day on August 30th, which is scenario 1, we can achieve a last day of school on Tuesday, June 14th. This is one where we did go ahead and align the parent-teacher conferences with Thanksgiving. And the quarters are pretty even in this one. If we can go ahead to the next slide, we can look at the graphic. Thank you. So again, you see the first day there on August 30th. You'll notice that Labor Day then is the 6th, and the day after is a non-instructional day, again, as an operational closure. And this is what it looks like if we go ahead and put those parent-teacher conferences with Thanksgiving. In this scenario also, we show spring break after Easter as opposed to before. Again, there are pros and cons. Although I do think that there is some energy around having it before, both from athletics and also from testing. But after, it does make a nice break relative to how long the spring is. So again, there's pros and cons to both. So this is the first scenario. And again, I just would remind folks that we wanted to just put forward some functional scenarios to talk through, and we'll make, there's a lot of process ahead where we can make adjustments to reflect those individual pieces that we need to put together. Next slide, please. In this scenario, again, we're still starting before Labor Day, but what we did do was put the parent-teacher conferences on back with Veterans Day, and we also have spring break before Easter. If we can go ahead to the graphic. Thank you. And so again, really the only difference here between the first and second is that you do see a more traditional look here in terms of having the parent-teacher conferences on that Veterans Day in November, and then spring break is right before Easter. So then the final scenario is one, if we can go ahead, thank you. This is one where we wanted to look at what would it look like if we started after Labor Day, because certainly we do know that there is still energy around that as well. And I'll come back to that in just a second. Certainly the later we start, the later we get out. And so the last day of school in this scenario is Tuesday, June 21st, which is a little bit late. But again, it is a scenario that we want to think about and that there certainly is some interest in. And if we can go ahead to the graphic and look at that, please. Thank you. So I want to just pause while we're here for a minute and talk a little bit about some of the parent feedback that we did receive. Again, we had a preliminary, just some feedback with some of our stakeholder advocacy groups and parents around these calendar issues as we were preparing for this discussion with the committee today. And it is always just helpful to hear, again, how everyone is viewing these different issues from their perspectives. Certainly, there was much appreciation of the acknowledgement of the operational closures and embedding those within the calendar, and certainly heard, again, much appreciation for that approach. We've already talked a little bit about the parent-teacher conference days, and again, there are pros and cons to that. The issue with Labor Day, I think, certainly some folks had an interest in starting before Labor Day so that we would be out earlier, and feeling that with Labor Day so late, that was a better approach. However, many individuals also really were looking at sort of the unusual nature of the summer that we're about to head into. Some folks were saying, if people are trying to make plans, they might make them later in August in the anticipation that health conditions might be better. Others were also commenting that certainly our summer school program might be going, is likely going to be going into August, and it might be hard to get a break if we start before Labor Day. So again, just understanding sort of that we are in a little bit of an unusual situation at this moment. Does, again, just kind of lend some different views to that before and after Labor Day timeframe. So let me just wrap up really briefly with the next steps on the next slide, please, and then we can break and talk about the scenarios. Our proposed plan, if it is appropriate for the committee and the committee supports, would be to, of course, following today, make any adjustments or amendments that the Policy Management Committee would like to see in these scenarios. We then would take whatever scenarios you all are interested in moving forward, and we would bring those to the board on March 9th as a work session. And because that's a work session, we certainly can talk about the scenarios, and board members, again, can have the same opportunity to discuss the issues and recommend any kinds of scenarios that the board would like to see put forward. We would then put those forward right away. We'd turn them around on March 10th and have as long a window as possible for feedback between March 10th and March 19th. Certainly would do a little bit of what we've done before, have it on the web, have sort of an online, survey piece where people can weigh in online. We would work with our advocacy partners and our PTA partners, really trying to get it out there for as much feedback as possible. And then what we would like to do is bring that feedback back to you on March 23rd. And be able to present a recommendation to the board to take action on March 23rd. I think there would be a lot of benefits to trying to complete this process before spring break, and certainly before April, and then we still would be in a place where people could start to make their plans for the summer and the year ahead. So that's our proposal for, again, a compressed time frame, but one that I hope still represents the key milestones that we need to in the process. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask individual board members for their thoughts. I certainly have some thoughts, but I'll let you guys go first. So Ms. Mondrowski, do you want to begin?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of this. If I were going to pick two, I would, to move forward, it would be draft scenario 2 and draft scenario 3 for public comment. The one thing that I would say is that I wouldn't mind switching and if you said it, Ms. McGuire, and I missed it, I apologize. But I like the spring break before the official Easter date, but I would be open to switching the 2 other early release days to the 2 days before, the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So I don't know if that's something any of my colleagues have an opinion on or feel strongly about, but to me, that would be kind of, the one change I would make.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you. I think there's a lot to be said for having consistent weeks. I support the idea of the parent-teacher conferences the week of Thanksgiving so that the previous week is, not disjointed. And I know for many, many years, we had Parent Visitation Day on Veterans Day, and we shifted, when we did conferences. I think that there's a lot to be said for doing that during Thanksgiving week. And I actually do believe that we should have the earlier spring break prior to Easter. And I don't know how that affects that end of the marking period date. I think if that could be added to spring break, I think that's a good idea. Dr. Daca?
I think I like the one with the Thanksgiving, prior to Thanksgiving, having those days for parent conferences. And as you said, many years ago, we had school on November 11th. And when we started adding holidays, we had to give up November 11th. So having that as a visitation day for parents is a good idea, but I prefer the dates before Thanksgiving.
And so we can, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mrs. O'Neill.
No. I was just going to ask Mr. Asante. Mr.
Yeah,
Asante?
I think I'm in a similar boat. I think I prefer scenario 2, but with those early release dates moved to that Thanksgiving week.
I also have one other thought. And as I looked at the calendar with the December 24th closure, Christmas Eve on a Friday, and it is a short winter break, I actually believe that we should be closed on the 23rd. Many school systems and other places are closed the entire week before Christmas, have a 2-week break. I think that it would enable parents and staff to travel. So I would propose that we close on December 23rd for the first day of winter break, and then extend, because we have to have the days, extend one more day at the end of the year, ending on Wednesday.
I'll totally second that.
I think that staff and families, we don't totally close the week of Thanksgiving, but I think that would make a nice addition. So I don't know whether my other colleagues, I know Rebecca just seconded it. I don't know, Judy and Nick, what you think, but I think that just in the spirit of this season and, having a better break, I think, and being compassionate for our families and staff, hopefully this year people will be able to travel. So, Dr. Daka or Nick?
I agree. I think closing the 23rd would make a lot of sense.
No, I agree also. That sounds like a good thought for the 23rd. Okay, yeah.
So, Ms. McGuire,
I think we can absolutely, yes, I agree. I think we can incorporate that, no problem. I think a lot of people will appreciate it. And as I said, it was shaping up to be kind of a short winter break. So I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. So we can move forward as many scenarios to the board as the committee would like. I'm really hearing the most energy around 2. I'm hearing that the committee would still like to keep 1 scenario after Labor Day just for consideration.
I think we should put forward to the full board and out for community comment a scenario that does start after Labor Day. My preference really is to start before Labor Day. I think that starting on that Wednesday, I think it pushes the end of the school year conversation. And I personally do not always believe that June is the most productive time of this school year. I think particularly for high school students, once those APs and IBs exams are given in May, I think even in the elementaries. So I prefer starting earlier, and I like the idea of having a full week of instruction prior to Labor Day. I do believe that I'm fine with doing a half day on that Friday before Labor Day, but I think that it should be, I prefer that starting before Labor Day. You mentioned about sports and the concern around Easter vacation or spring break. What were those discussions? How did they focus?
And so really it was a sort of a general preference in the spring break calendar in the athletics calendar to have spring break a little earlier. And so certainly, again, just if it falls after Easter this year, it would be really much towards the end of April. And just in terms of maximizing weather, also just in terms of having sort of a good natural seasonal break between the winter and the spring, the athletic preference was for it to be earlier.
I don't want to pass too many too many calendars forward. I think people begin to be confused and pick and choose. And I do support the idea of the earlier spring break. I think that's a better scenario.
So, and I think that what I'm really hearing from I believe everyone is, again, as we said, move scenario 3, which is the after Labor Day start, just so that people can see that and understand it for consideration. And then scenario 2, but I'm hearing definitely that the one change we would want to make to that would be to move those parent-teacher conferences to the week of Thanksgiving. And
Right.
that's the scenario that does have spring break earlier. And then, of course, in both scenarios, we would add the 23rd as a closure as well to extend winter break. Does that reflect the committee's discussion?
I believe so. Dr. Daka, did you have? No, you're okay with that, Mr. Asante? Yes, and Ms. Mondrowski? Okay. So we will forward those 2 scenarios to the full board for the work session on March 9th, intending to come back with the public comment March 23rd. And I really do think March 23rd, we need to make that decision so that people know.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, if I could just make one, I wanted to speak just for another minute about the innovative school calendars.
Sure.
So we always do keep ourselves on a little bit of a parallel track, and I want to be careful not to drop them off today. As folks remember, the innovative and the traditional calendars during the body of the school year, during the traditional school year, the school system is either fully in session or fully out of session. So any day that is a non-instructional day, the 2 calendars will share. However, the innovative schools, obviously they set their own time over the summer, and they work and they have their own process with their schools to discuss that time. And then during the year, they have different quarters, different half days, and certain other changes that reflect their educational and innovative structure. And so they will continue to work that through in the process with their schools. We'll work with them. And when we come back on the 23rd, we will have both calendars for the board at that point. So between now and then, we'll again continue to work with them and have sort of a feedback loop that's a little more focused on those school communities.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much. We are now on to food and nutrition policy. Ms. Williams, or I'm not
Yes.
sure. Okay.
Yes, that would be me. Sorry, I was muted for a moment there. Thank you, Mrs. O'Neill. As you're aware, draft policy JPH, School Food and Nutrition Services Programs, was out for public comment after the board took tentative action, out for public comment from December 4th through February 12th. So we bring it back today for your consideration, and with your agreement and approval, we'll move forward to the full board in May for final action. So we received 10 comments from the public, and the commenters received themselves as, and sometimes they had overlapping categories: parents, guardians, staff members, or community members. We did not receive any comments from students. We received a general affirmation of the draft language noted in the policy as the overarching purpose to treat all students with dignity, regardless of their meal account balances, as well as the provision of an alternative meal for full-pay students who exceed the threshold of unpaid meal balances. So there was general consensus around, or not consensus, but affirmation of the board's position there. Several other areas that received affirming comments included our proactive outreach to families who may be farms eligible but have not applied. So there was appreciation for that expectation of outreach. Appreciation of the fact that the policy requires communication with parents, not students, regarding meal account balances. There was also recognition of the need to identify additional funding options for helping us to address the unpaid balances. And even though it wasn't a topic of the policy, through the comment period, a number of expressions of gratitude were offered for MCPS staff working at food distribution sites during the pandemic in the times that we're facing in this community. We are not recommending any changes to the policy as a result of the comments that we received from the public. However, I did want to share with the committee, you all have received copies of the comments as well as the summary table, but I wanted to highlight for you here today a few concerns that were expressed in the comments that were received. There was concern expressed that from the opinions of the commenters that MCPS could do even more to help those who are families in the community who are experiencing food insecurity. Now, we do reference several partnerships that MCPS is engaged in within this policy and refers to the funding that is utilized to offer opportunities for meals or snacks beyond lunch. Those are referenced in the policy at this point. There was more than one commenter expressed a concern about the alternative, whether the alternative meal would meet dietary or cultural needs of students, because the general reference is to the turkey sandwich. I know Ms. Dawson and Ms. Harrell are here and can address that further if you have questions, but this is something that we are prepared to address. There was also concerns expressed about the timing of the policy and the times that we find ourselves in here in the midst of this pandemic and the impact that it's had on its community to make such a change at this time. Our few commenters from the community thought that this was not appropriate. I want to just make a few notes for the board is aware of, but just to highlight it within respect to the timing. First of all, the pandemic interrupted so much, and this was one of the things that was actually set to come before the board the very week after we were shut down. And so it is not an initiative that the board has taken in the midst of the pandemic. Additionally, the final action date is set for May 11th with an effective date for this policy to be concurrent with next school year. And we can certainly make sure that that's clear in the documentation that goes to the board for final action with respect to the timing. But I also want to highlight for the committee and others the reason for the policy initially, and that is we have to comply with federal law that says that we must have a policy in place with respect to the handling of unpaid meal debt, and we must communicate that clearly to our community. So a few components of that law that are incorporated into our policy include minimizing the identification of students with insufficient funds, maintaining the financial integrity of our food services through the National Food Service Lunch Program, providing nutrition to students, and as well as communicating to the community how the collection of meal charge debts will be handled. So those are the reasons behind developing this policy at this time, and that it was not initiated in the context of the pandemic. As I stated earlier, we're not making any recommendations for changes in that. That's all I have.
I appreciate you setting the context because I did see, and I was kind of troubled by the MCCPTA comments. And in fact, we had a speaker from their committee during public comments the other day at the board meeting. And it sort of painted the picture that the board was cold and heartless, and that we should be focusing on healthy and nutritional meals and not sort of dunning, I'm paraphrasing what she said, dunning families during a pandemic. I believe that when we send the memo and the resolution to the board for full action, we really need to be clear with the timeline. There was a new business item from the board. I believe it was the summer of 2018, I think. That started the process, and the fact that we need to comply with federal law. And I also sort of take offense, and I know Ms. Dawson, Ms. Harrell, and others would take offense that we are not providing healthy and nutritious meals because, and I'll let you speak to this, but I know that we meet or exceed all federal and state guidelines with health and nutrition. And, I also wanted to give kudos to Ms. Smondrowski, who has been actively helping at the school lunch distributions. And I don't know whether she wants to speak to the feelings that parents have expressed in receiving the meals. But I think that our resolution and our memo to the board needs to be very clear about why and when. But Ms. Mondreski, I know you're going to have to jump off soon, but did you want to just comment about your experiences with the lunches?
Sure. I'd love to. I really enjoyed the time that I spent at the schools and talking to families and stuff like that. They are so extremely grateful. And I would say, you can tell when the word of mouth gets started as to like what we're serving and what we're doing, because the people start coming in more and more and more. I think that we give out half gallons of milk. I'm not 100%, like Mrs. O'Neill mentioned, it seemed a little offensive when people were talking about us not providing nutritious meals, because we even have families who say, well, we don't really need the milk. And our people are like, nope, this is for you. You can have it, take it. You can freeze it. but it's, I think that, I can't say enough about the lunchroom staff members who've been out there on the front lines, day after day, week after week, this entire year. And the big boxes of food, people really appreciate that. I mean, the line gets long. I'm frequent. I go to a bunch of different schools, but I'm often at Southlake, and they definitely appreciate being able to pick up the bulk amount of food at one time, as opposed to coming, all the time. So I think you guys have done a fabulous job. And like I said, I know that the families that come are very grateful. I do get concerned sometimes because you don't see nearly as many families as we did during the summertime. But, and so I worry that some of the kids may be, at home alone or whatever, and don't come out to get the meals. But that's one of the reasons why I think being able to provide the food, bulk food, is a real benefit to our families. So I just want to thank you very much for everything that you guys do and all the work that you do. And I think that the food is very good. I was going to say, I've tried, I'm not going to lie, I've sampled some. It's very good. So thank you.
As long
I'd
as
like
the
to
wait.
attest to that.
Oh, sure.
Do you mind? I want to continue with that because I was out there yesterday when they were lined up. They go past the shopping center. They go out into the other street and around the corner. It is a huge amount. I'm sure that they are appreciating the things that our staff are doing. Thank you. And Ms. Mondrowski, that's a huge amount of people if you were out there working with them. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Asante, did you want to add anything to the food conversation?
I haven't had the chance to pass out lunch, but I will say, you know, from eating the school meals, I do think they're pretty nutritious. So I think you do
good.
a good job with that.
You know, other than a brief period of time, I guess it was in August, when we did not have the waivers in place, and the board did write to our entire federal delegation asking them to work with us, and getting those waivers back. You know, we're not asking people for, you know, the free reduced meals forms to get the meals. I mean, it's with anyone with a child can receive the meals now, and we are not being cold and heartless. And but we do have to abide by the federal regulations as long as we receive federal subsidies on our meals. And I don't, Ms. Dawson, I don't know whether who or Ms. Errol who wants, or Ms. McGuire who wants to speak to that. But I think that I was concerned by the MCCPTA comments.
Yes, and we do have to meet federal guidelines around this. However, because we have waivers, none of this takes effect right now. We have waivers through June 30th. The actual waivers really go through August 30th. However, with Maryland and other states right now, they haven't extended those out. So we could see things going through the summer even. This policy really is intended for next year, once we're back under the National School Lunch Program. So, you know, we're in summer food lunch program this whole time. So we wouldn't be addressing any of these issues, but with the federal guidelines, really from, like you said, back from 2016 on, we needed to have a policy in place. They gave us multiple years to get that in place. And then we have to advertise it to our parents to show that we are being fiscally sound and solid. And especially, you know, as an enterprise fund, we have to show that we're fiscally sound. So that's the main reason behind it. And we will not, under any circumstance, you know, not provide nutritional meals. I mean, we meet all the guidelines. As a matter of fact, we're one of the few systems that our sodium guidelines is a tier 2, and we're meaning that our sodium levels are lower than many. So, you know, we're constantly working. Another example of that is to reduce the sugar in our chocolate milks so that it is much more nutritional. We're one of the few systems that's been innovative in that way to do it. So know that we constantly work on those things for our families.
So with regard to the draft policy, you know, it really spells out about the requirement to meet the federal and state or the federal regulations beginning in line 44. But I also believe that, you know, while up at the top we have related entries, I wonder, can we reference up there as well the federal regulation? I just, you know, I think it needs to be emphasized. And the other piece that in the MCCPTA, they said that they did not believe that this policy would meet the county's equity policy. And I don't want to leave that piece just hanging out there, because this policy and the practices, you know, going with the educational foundation to provide, you know, the Dine with Dignity program. I don't know whether we should respond to MCCPTA at some point, but I'm troubled on so many levels by either they didn't pay attention or didn't watch our initial presentation at the Policy Management Committee, didn't read or watch the discussions at the full board. But, you know, we should not be accused of not abiding by the county equity policy. So I think, Ms. Webb, I don't know how you think we can handle that, but I think some way it needs to be, we need to clarify with them.
we certainly can send a clarifying letter explaining how we are in compliance and as Ms. Dawson said, what the current state of the program is.
Right. And maybe sort of legislative history, that we've been given time by the federal government. We have to abide by this. And it's not that we're Simon Legree and being cold and heartless. My words.
You're right. I'll draft the letter, but I probably won't use the Simon Legree reference.
No, I know. But, I mean, that's really how they made me feel, or made us accuse this committee. So,
Mrs. O'Neill, may I draw your attention to page 7 of the policy? It's starting at line 203, where we reference the federal and regulations. All of the related federal regulations. It's been our practice in the last few years to move the related sources to the end of the document.
Okay.
Because they are often long.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I just really feel it needs to be up front. I mean, maybe this one time, because I think it really governs or drives the why.
Okay.
It does. And I think to your point, Mrs. O'Neill, and all of the committee, even within that regulation, the policy, the board's approach, our approach as a system has always been to provide as much as possible to go that extra mile to work with families and with schools. And I think there are, so many ways that we comply with and are in alignment with the equity policy and the equity directions around all of that work. It's definitely core. And I think we can look for ways to elevate that and also to, again, work with Ms. Webb on a letter for you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, is there agreement among the Policy Management Committee that we move this forward to the full board for May final action? Everybody? Okay, everybody's in agreement. Okay, we are now on to extracurricular activities eligibility.
Okay, thank you. We received the comment period for this policy was November 11th through February 12th. We received 9 comments from the community, 6 from persons identifying as parents and guardians, 2 as MCPS staff persons, 4 as Montgomery County community, members of the Montgomery County community. So just a quick overview of the policy, of the comments that we received on the policy. 2 of the comments addressed waiving the academic requirements during COVID. Again, similar to the prior policy, not separating current circumstances from the policy going forward. 4 commenters who thought academic standards should be higher and noted that academic eligibility should apply to all extracurricular activities, or that participation must be, to quote the commenter, earned. And 3 commenters expressed concerns for higher academic standards, talked about students needing areas where they could be successful, even if they're not always academically successful, or ways that students could be, in other ways that students could be involved in the schools, in the school community. So as before, you have received all of the comments as well as the summary of the comments. Staff is not making any recommendations for changes to the draft, to the policy as sent out for public comment in the draft that you have before you.
Well, I know we have Mr. Sullivan and Dr. Goodwin who both worked on this. I don't know whether you wanted to make any general comments. We appreciate the upfront groundwork that you did that led us to the recommendations from the Policy Management Committee. Mr. Sullivan or Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Goodwin.
Well, thank you, Mrs. O'Neill. I'd just like to say I appreciate the support of all the stakeholders and the input that they provided over the several months last year as we went around and heard the voices of our students, of our coaches, of our principals, of our parents, and really infused that into the recommendations that we provided to you. We feel that the policy, the proposed policy balances holding those standards of academic excellence and persistence to graduation for our student athletes, but also balancing that with the access to the program. So, you know, we appreciate everyone's efforts, and I feel that the policy is very strong.
Dr. Goodwin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure, it's a very important topic. I think that the public and others should recognize that when these students participate in these extracurricular activities, one of their best chances of actually having a mentor, someone that helps them and motivates them. Otherwise, they're just at home by themselves and not getting that kind of attention. And so the more we can keep the students on school grounds and participating in activities, the better chance they get for mentoring that will really help them in the long run.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, what would be the proposed timeline of sending this to the full board for action? I know for the rest of this school year, we've suspended the eligibility requirements, but you know, this would take effect for the next school year.
So it would be for the next school year. Before I respond to you, Mrs. O'Neill, might I note that Mrs. Cherry is with us as well.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, she represents the student voice as well as other extracurricular activities.
Ms. Cherry, I'd like to give you the opportunity to respond. I didn't see you. Sorry.
No worries at all. Thank you very much. I think it's a critical opportunity for our students to remain engaged in the school as a whole. And many of our students, if they avail the opportunity to connect with a staff member or even other peers through similar interests, through their extracurricular activities or athletics, I think that they find themselves more ingrained in the school community and in the culture of the school as a whole. So I do believe that this policy avails that opportunity to a greater portion of our students. And I hope to get them hooked and engaged through leadership, through extracurricular activities, through athletics. And so more opportunities that we can avail to our students, the better. Thank you.
Great. So with that said, are all my board members, policy committee members in favor of advancing this to the full board?
Mrs. O'Neill, I'm sorry, I did not respond to your question before, which was the timing. It is scheduled to come to the board, tentatively scheduled, subject to your approval and recommendation, to come to the board on March 23rd, which allows the final action to have taken place at the start of the fourth quarter. It is effective next school year. However, as Dr. Sullivan impressed upon us for the timing, and we really appreciate this, since the students who start school in the fall, as 10th graders, their academic eligibility will be dependent upon their fourth quarter grades for this school year. We wanted to make sure that it was in effect so that there was notice of that change. So the planned final action date right now is March 23rd.
Great.
And it'll take effect in the fall.
Okay. I certainly hope that we can communicate to our student body, once we adopt the changes, that very issue. So are all those in favor of moving this forward to the full board? And Ms. Modrowski, you can just text me because I know you're listening. Oh, you're there.
I'm a yes.
Okay. All right. So we will look forward to bringing this to the full board on March 23rd. And I think that is it. Is there anything else for the good of the order? I know I'm backtracking, but I misread my notes. I want to just ask Ms. McGuire if when she sends the full board the calendars, did she take a look at when the gubernatorial primary is in 2022?
Yes, thank you. And actually, we are going to escape without the impact of any election dates in the upcoming school year, because right now it's scheduled to be much later. But we would keep an eye on that in case there are any changes in the legislature.
Okay. Sorry to do that out of order, but I just saw that in my notes. So, okay, with that, this committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.